Okay, so welcome everyone to the Auto Recyclers Experience podcast. My name's Chris Daglis. I'll be chairing this meeting, if you like, or this session, along with Chad Counselman from All Auto Recalls. Got a couple of great special guests on today. Adam Murray in the top left there from AVIVA Insurance, and also we have Laura Richards from eBay in the bottom right. Welcome, guys.
Good afternoon, good morning.
Excellent. So let's jump straight into this. We're looking at talking about a number of different things, but one of the beautiful things about where we're at today, and in really tough times, I suppose, is that we've got two different stakeholders in the UK that we're working very closely with, and I've personally been working with Laura and eBay in the UK since February last year. I met Adam at a very similar time through this relationship back in the UK in London for a couple of sessions we held there in February last year, and things have been progressing really nicely with the strategy around the increased usage of reclaimed parts, green parts in the UK. So I think what I'd like to do is really get straight into some of those questions. Firstly, welcome all the attendees. We've got people logging in now. We're also streaming live on Facebook. Whoever wants to be on Facebook, we'll be taking some of those questions as well. So if you see me looking at my phone, I'm not being rude. I'm just checking my Facebook feed to see what questions we may need to attend to. But if I can sort of open up to Laura first, possibly. Laura, if it's okay with you, ladies first. You've been really driving reclaimed parts, and eBay's looking at launching its own B2B platform. Been working closely with you on that front, building that strategy over the past 15 or so months. Tell us a little bit about what your goals are and how you're looking at driving forward, and where you're at currently in the current state of play, if you like.
Sure, thanks, Chris. So reclaimed parts on eBay, effectively, just to give a bit of context, we started to manage the inventory type around 3 years ago, where it was more almost experimental to see, whether or not a bit of support in this industry could drive conversion, increase sales, and actually improve and increase the consumer awareness of the reclaimed vehicle parts. Over the past 3 years, it's worked incredibly well. The inventory type is very unique. It's highly in demand, and it's offering what we call the value of spectrum. So on the eBay platform, we have OEM new, aftermarket, white label, unbranded, and then reclaimed parts. It's quite a big chunk of our what we call turnover within our vehicle parts and accessories category. And it has been one of the healthiest in terms of growth in the UK market over the last 3 years. Interestingly, it's a product type that does fill a gap. So if we're looking, the world is moving forward with green carbon savings, very, very much focus on reuse rather than remanufacturing. There is a good amount of product when it comes to the reclaimed industry that actually fulfills a gap with the reuse rather than remanufacturing. So we've been speaking with a lot of stakeholders. So we work closely with a lot of third-party listing providers, so the likes of Hollanders, the likes of used to be the DH Systems and Breaker Pro. We have a really good relationship with a lot of our large sellers on the platform, where we talk to them directly. We have a team that supports them within the DOM functionality as well. And over time, just speaking with the businesses, we said to them, okay, so what's next for you guys? What is it that you really, really want? And one of the things that came out of the feedback from the businesses that trade on the platform is, hey, we think we've got a business opportunity here, but people just don't know how good we are with what we actually do with our businesses. So we thought to ourselves, okay, let's take away and have a look at what that potential business opportunity is. We did a bit of research, so we know it'll be possibly similar on the other eBay platforms, but we know, for example, within the reclaimed parts inventory type, we're actually getting a high frequency of business buyers already buying directly on the platform. So they're buying a minimum of 5 parts at a time, and a minimum of 5 times a week. So we are getting actually a high frequency of what we determine as business buyers. However, when we commissioned a bit of research at the beginning of summer last year, where we actually went out and panelled independent garages, collision repairers, effectively, and just said to them, like, what is your view on reclaimed parts? What's going on in your industry? What are the barriers, and do you want to purchase? And interestingly, a few of them did say, yes, we are. They were honest and said, we are actually purchasing reclaimed parts. We use different avenues to get them, but we are using them where we can't get the genuine part directly from the manufacturer, for example. But there were quite a few limitations. So, for example, one of the limitations was, okay, how do we know that we're buying from the most reputable recyclers? How do we know that it's legitimate stock? Secondly, how do we know that the part comes with a warranty, right? So we're a business, we're offering a service to our businesses who are buyers. How do we actually know that the part is warranted? And then where do we go to find the part as well? So an aggregated supply. A lot of the repairers or the garage networks don't have the time to have multiple relationships with multiple suppliers. They're looking at a form of aggregating the supply. So interestingly, that research came out exactly as we thought, which then opened up, okay, so how do we achieve our next steps? Which is we need the certification, so the independent certification of the recyclers, which obviously Adam will move on to, but that's super, super important for them to be able to feel comfortable buying the products. And then the technology, right? So how do we get the parts that we want super, super fast from the trusted source of supply, and also within our standard business terms. So for example, if you're a business in a garage, you're not going to be buying items ad hoc. You need a line of credit so you can obviously manage your cash flow. This is where eBay stepped in. We're sponsoring the certification scheme that VRA are running, which is really, really in depth and an absolutely fantastic scheme. And then secondly, we are very, very close to having a business-to-business portal available for garages and collision repairers to be able to shop with ease, and knowing that they're buying from certified recyclers, and they get their line of credit, and they get a very, very standard way of buying parts. So we're in a good position. We're moving forward very nicely there. So that's where we're at the moment.
Excellent. Sorry, I just had thanks for that that summary. Sorry, Chad, were you going to say something there?
I was going to say something that just stood out to me just then. I knew she was going to say it, but I wanted her to expound on that a little bit. You said a line of credit. So you're providing lending services basically to the repairers because you're fronting the money to the providers of the parts, the automotive dismantlers and recyclers. Is that what you're saying?
To be correct, yes. So within the platform, we partner with a provider that is linked with Santander, which is a bank, and Santander for this particular scheme are offering our eBay buyers 0% credit on their purchases.
So one of the things, Chad, that was critical that we spoke about with eBay was, we don't want to put the collision repair in any worse off position than they are today. In fact, we want to improve that position. So what are the objections a collision repairer will have to participating in this environment? And one of the objections would have been, well, I currently get 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is I currently get with my suppliers. But on eBay, I need to pay straight away. So we needed to mitigate that challenge, or that risk, if you like, and be in a position where the repairer is at least in the same position as they were before, while delivering other benefits through the platform. So that's the whole idea.
And I think just to add, also the nice part of it as well is for the businesses that are actually selling the products, the recyclers, is they don't have to change anything. They carry on as they are. They get their cash up front, and the buyers get their items on credit. So I think it's a win-win situation.
Probably better for the recycler, because you're paying the recycler for the part at the time of the transaction, instead of the recycler having to carry the note for 30 or 60 days.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Mr. Murray, can we head over to insurance land for a quick second? AVIVA Insurance is, I believe, the largest general insurer in the UK. You've been very proactive from a reclaimed / green parts or recycled original equipment parts, as we're starting to call them, whatever we want to call them. You've been quite proactive and supported the strategy. When we were looking at the certification program, you participated in those workshops that we had last February, and were very vocal and actually engaged strongly in those. What is it about your position from an AVIVA perspective that is inviting to you about reclaimed parts and what you want to do in your perspective on reclaimed parts?
So AVIVA, as a large insurer, deals with a massive number of claims for accident damaged cars per year. That's the first criteria setter. And we're in excess of 100,000 repairs in a year. To look at repairs, we break it down to make sure we're treating customers fairly. And one of the issues we keep coming across is that parts cause delay in repair, and they actually hold up the whole process. Vehicles are often in repair, and a simple component can actually hold that repair up for days, weeks, sometimes months, and actually there's no logic to actually overcome it. I started about 3 to 5 years ago looking at reclaimed parts as a potential solution. And as a regulated business, it's not as simple as just unplugging one system and plugging another system in. We've got regulations that we've got to comply with. We also have the company ethos of treating customers fairly. And to use reclaimed parts, there has to be a certain amount of credibility and confirmation that the part is fit for purpose in the first place, and also will deliver an indemnity outcome that actually matches the original part that you bought it off a vehicle manufacturer. So they are simple criteria that we've got to uphold to make sure that we meet the criteria. Essentially, that drove the development of a standard that was pre-written before VRA, where a group of recyclers, some body shop background people, myself and a publicist got in a room, sat down and actually penned what we call a draft standard. We had it in front of BSI, British Standards Institute. They liked what they saw, and we were then aware if somebody like AVIVA published that standard, that it could work detrimentally for the standard. The other insurers might think, sod off, I'm not actually getting involved in that. So we gave the standard in draft to VRA to allow them to progress the work. And it's only right and fitting that the Vehicle Recycling Organisation in the UK work alongside its members to develop that standard to make it robust enough for the members to support. On top of that, the AVIVA strategy for reclaimed parts is the aim is to develop a robust alternative parts supply that consistently delivers consumer satisfaction, including safe and compliant repairs. In other words, what we're trying to do is a Euro NCAP 5 car has to be returned to Euro NCAP 5 status following repairs, no matter what parts you use. And that's one of the primary objectives. To ensure common standards are adopted that promote consistent quality parts for repair, there's no point buying reclaimed parts if they don't come in a standard that's fit to use them. It's got to be graded to a certain quality. It's got to be assured by the person that's selling it that matches the quality requirements in order that we can provide a customer service. Then we've got to create a transparent process that provides clear transactional usage of reclaimed parts, linking the part to the donor vehicle and the repaired vehicle for audit purposes. If something was to go wrong in the future, we need to be able to trace back to where it came from, right down to the identification of the vehicle, to allow us to actually satisfy any challenges that come across our desk. And if you're using large numbers of parts, you've got a lot of these challenges, you've got to have a very transparent mechanism to allow you to trace it back. Yeah. The test then is to change the perception and the acceptance of the customer. In the UK, for years, most customers would not allow reclaimed parts to be used on their vehicles because they were indoctrinated into a repair process by insurers where we primarily used new parts, always. We didn't really use reclaimed parts. So you've got a customer base that you've got to actually make sure that you can deliver the exact same standard of repair without actually deteriorating the contract terms that you've actually signed up to with them. So when you deliver the vehicle back to them, it has to be proper indemnity. There's a lot of factors that actually we can influence the customer thinking, including if somebody applied a betterment status to the parts, if they used original parts, I'm pretty sure that would be seen as a detrimental step by the FCA. They would think you're coercing the customer into using them. So we've got to be absolutely transparent in our description, in our application, and actually with consent where possible. So there's a lot going on here that actually people might not understand, that actually we want to put in place a robust platform and system that works for the rest of the time. It's not 1 day, 1 minute, 1 week. This is forever. This is to actually give us alternatives to the current usage of original equipment from the manufacturers.
Excellent. I think, you know, listening to you there, Adam, I'm trying to walk a mile in the shoes of recyclers that are listening in on this call.
Yeah.
You know, we've been talking about some of these things in different jurisdictions for a long time, and it's often difficult to get an insurer on to buy into the strategy and to be openly transparent about, you know, what the opportunities, but also what some of the challenges are. And I think as a recycling, we need to, one, be enthused by the fact that, you know, we've got this now. But secondly, we also need to be conscious that we need to do things differently as well as an industry in order to make sure that we can satisfy the requirements. And in my view, the very reasonable requirements that in this case, an insurer is saying we need to meet. So I think that's great. Couple of questions quickly before we move on. A couple of questions. Scott Robertson from Robertson's Auto Salvage over in the US and the ARA president. What selling fees does eBay charge recyclers in the UK? And do the fees increase if the buyer buys on credit? Laura, are you allowed to talk to that, or is that more a one-to-one thing?
I'm happy to talk about that. Good question. So the fees will change based on the platform, based on what country you're in. So I can't talk for what the standard fees are in the US, but in the UK, the standard take rate, so fee, is 7%, and is going to be no increase in fees if the buyer buys on credit.
Excellent. Got one here from Jason Cross at Cinetic. Just on the piece around the 0% for buyers backed by Santander, in terms of the sellers getting their money on day one, is there a cost for that to be levied by the lender? That is such a factoring type of deal. So will Santander or whatever charge a percentage on the money?
No percentage being charged to the sellers that they need to worry about. No percentage being charged to buyers that needs to be worried about.
Okay, that sounds like a decent deal. Jason, hopefully that answers your question, and Scott, hopefully that answers yours. If others have questions, please continue sending those through. Perfect.
I have a question.
Jason.
I have a question for Adam. He alluded to something a few minutes ago about part traceability. That's always been a topic that's been a little bit of a challenge for the automotive recycling industry to fully engage with. Can you expand on what you as an insurer think that you need for part traceability?
Yeah, so for part traceability, I need the VIN number of the vehicle where the part originated. I need to know the make, model, and in some cases, mileage, I guess. There'll be some criteria around about the details from the vehicle that allows me to cross-match that vehicle against the part type to make sure it's compatible.
Okay, so you will be double checking interchangeability of the component.
Not me personally, but the person having obtained the part has to actually cross-check that that part is suitable for purpose. And if he doesn't do that, then if a liability occurs later, he accepts that liability.
Okay, good answer and very reasonable. Okay.
Excellent. I just want to pick up also on Adam, your comments about, you know, in support of an alternative supply chain, if you like, or, substitution of OE genuine parts and using those genuine alternative parts in the repair process. And I've said a bit, I've spoken a bit and written a bit on this piece here, and often it's looked at by the OEs as a negative. But the numbers that I've looked at for different insurance companies and some of the stuff that I've done with yourselves over at AVIVA certainly identified to me that there's a significant opportunity to, one, lower the average repair cost for an insurer. And as a result, there are a number of vehicles that fit into that, let's call it, that very close borderline type deal as to whether they're a total loss or they're repairable. Okay. And the numbers I've seen, and I'm looking for your view on this, Adam, the numbers I've seen are that we could probably affect a change there from total lossing between 18 and 20% of total claims to bringing that back to closer to 15 or 13%. You know, take 5 percentage points, or in fact, 25% reduction in total losses. What does that mean? That means there's more cars out there being repaired. That means there's more parts being used. That means there's less money being paid out on claims. That means that, yes, automotive recyclers have enabled this to happen if they build their supply capability right, and build their databases and et cetera, et cetera. But very importantly, the OEs will be selling more parts as well because more cars are being repaired. Can you correlate any of that? Is there anything that in your view, from an insurer perspective, you agree or disagree with that? What's your view?
So looking at the numbers, the program could assist us to repair more vehicles. There is no question about that. But that largely depends on the supplier, the recycler, having the right components to allow us to repair more vehicles. Now, from my experience, there's still opportunity to grow the scheme. It's infinite. It's quite a new scheme. And I would like to see it in a year's time to answer that question more fully. What is the art of the possible? In theory, the thinking is that you can repair more cars. In theory, the economic climate today, with the COVID-19 and Brexit coming at the same time, you've got a great opportunity to actually repair much more cars. 59% of vehicle registrations, new vehicle registrations, were wiped off the map last month. And if it continues like that, manufacturing cars and building new cars will actually reduce. Therefore, more opportunity to use parts, repairing the cars that are currently on the road will exist. Actually, specific numbers, virtually impossible to actually say, but with certainty, much more cars will be repaired if we adopted reclaimed parts. Not because they're cheaper, it's just because we've got more parts accessibility. It's not about delivering a cost-effective, more cost-effective scheme. It's actually giving us more opportunity to repair cars because the parts exist. That's where the biggest problem exists today. The original components, if the car's 5 years and older, you're actually struggling to come up with the components to repair the car. Therefore, in the older 5 to 8 year bracket, you will be repairing more cars. That's not to say we won't repair new cars with reclaimed parts. There's nothing wrong with repairing new cars because it's original equipment, just reclaimed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one of the things there also, Adam, is certainly if people aren't buying new cars, and I think all the automotive recyclers that are on this call that have been around for a little bit, and I'm looking at some of the names, and a few of them have been around for a little bit. They've been through different economic climates where there's been either recessions or certainly economic downturns. And when we see a reduction in new car sales, automotive recyclers usually see an uptake in their product because people have got older cars and they need to repair the older cars, right? From an insurance perspective, I've personally seen collision repairs back in the 2008 sort of period, 2008-10, huge increases in demands for recycled parts during that period. Why? Well, because ultimately, if there's an older vehicle in the car park, the pre-accident value of that vehicle is lower. The threshold at which that vehicle will be total lost or repaired is lowered. And the reality is it is harder to get new parts, and they usually get more expensive because of holding costs at the OEs. So, you know, certainly there's an opportunity for recyclers to be selling more parts there.
Chris, there's a bigger opportunity in the vehicle fleet market than what there is in the private market. So when you look at the UK system for insuring motor fleets, it's based on the cost of the burning cost, if you like, cost of claims against the amount of vehicles on the fleet. They're all factors. If you start to educate the fleet buyers, the white van buyers particularly, they can save money, serious money on their insurance costs, they will welcome this scheme as an enabler to reduce overhead costs. That's the market, I believe, is the most satisfactory market for all players. The insurer, the consumer, and also the recycler, because working along the lines of the recycler actually having the right components, they can put the car back on the road far quicker than actually ordering new components. They can actually deliver the part within a few hours. Actually, repairs could be underway over weekends or anything, and it'll actually become an enabler, which we currently don't have in the same framework today.
Yeah, absolutely. Laura, can I, before I go to some questions, you're from an eBay perspective and building a B2B platform, how do you see potentially eBay playing a role in not only the insurance piece, but, you know, in that area from a perspective of, you know, fleet buyers potentially?
I think eBay will play quite a strong role in raising awareness of the certification, raising awareness of the solution, and just raising awareness generally of, you know, what's important and what's available. We do have a strong business development function that's able to go out and have these relationships directly with the larger companies, which we've been doing at the moment. But ultimately, we're going to heavily invest in a overarching marketing strategy for the remainder of 2020 and going forward, where we need to get in front of the right publications, get in front of the right people, and just make them aware that this is happening. That's where we are. We did do a quite nice bit of press release towards the end of October last year, where we put out a press statement on eBay's ambition, which was picked up by Daily Mail, This Is Money, Tamebay, and a few other motoring publications. And since then, there's been quite a lot of talk in the industry around what's happening. So yeah, so going forward, we'll be marketing to collision repairers, we'll be marketing to garages, so independent garages and garage networks, because that's quite a large opportunity as well here. Yeah, so really strong on the PR angle.
Excellent. Okay, a couple of questions. Got one again from Scott. Probably for you, Adam. What is the percentage of recycled parts written on insurance repair estimates in the UK? And as a second part to that question, what is the percentage of recycled parts that is actually utilised in the repair of insurance systems?
So in terms of AVIVA, the estimates, the percentage of parts written is 0, because today we don't actually sanction use of reclaimed parts. That's one of the attractions for us, that we would use in the UK, AVIVA would use reclaimed parts where parts weren't available. So it's a very small percentage of components that we would buy on an annual basis. The attraction here is that we would then remove the reliance on original equipment supplied by vehicle manufacturers and have the opportunity to source reclaimed parts, original equipment, which would give us much bigger take-up. You used some numbers earlier in the presentation that I would love to reach, but at this stage, we would probably say it's a 0% uptake. What could be achieved is the numbers that you said at the beginning. With our portfolio, we've got a number of vehicles that could repair easily using reclaimed parts, successfully returning the vehicle to the customer, which would keep the customer insured with AVIVA and actually delight a lot of customers. We get a lot of dissatisfaction because parts cannot be obtained.
Yeah. Absolutely. And cycle time blows out, which makes it more costly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Chad, as the ex-ARA president and ex-owner of a yard in the US, you're listening to, I think what I'm hearing here is a scenario that I've been explaining to you for some time, as far as the work that I've been doing in the UK with Laura and the likes of Adam at AVIVA, and that it really looks positive from an industry perspective when you've got two, I'll call it giants, such as these two organisations, driving forward with a reclaimed parts strategy.
Absolutely. What stands out to me, though, that I'm hearing both of them say is certification. I've heard Adam and Laura both mention something to the effect of certification of the recycler and being sure that they can trust the partner, the business partner that they have. And that is something that our industry in the US, here in Australia, and I'm going to assume in the UK, has not engaged fully. The way that our industry, the automotive dismantling and recycling industry, needs to engage certification. And so I know we've got several listeners on that are yard owners, and it's time. It is time to engage certification. It's time for your association to push forward with certification. If you're not a part of it, you need to be in the middle of it. And so that's. Am I correct, Adam and Laura, what I'm saying there about certification?
Chad, the reason an insurer needs certification is that we've got to be able to quantify and confirm the status of the suppliers that we do business with. We've got no option under our regulated status but to use a process that's very robust for a supplier to engage with AVIVA. Therefore, if they weren't certified, it would be a lot more difficult for us to sign up any relationship.
Right.
One of the things, Chad, that I've been a strong advocate for independent certification for some time, and probably one of the reasons why Laura reached out and we've been doing some work together in that area from a certification perspective. But I've really been pushing that for a long time, because having worked with insurers, closely with insurers on alternative parts strategies, but also within an insurance company over the years, it's clear to me, taking my cynic's hat off for a minute, that insurers need a viable alternative to their current supply chain. And I think it's become crystal clear now with the COVID-19 scenario, where whether some people want to admit it or not, the supply chain is being challenged now, because there's shortages coming through, and to a degree, lucky that accident rates have come off by between 50 and 80%. Otherwise, they'd be feeling the pinch as far as availability of product. But insurers need an independent arm's length certification program that they can point to and say, I'm comfortable to recommend the use of those parts from those suppliers because they meet these independent standards that are annually audited and dealt with every year. We're one of the only industries globally that, and if we really want to be taken seriously, let's cut to the chase. We're one of the only industries at a global level that doesn't do that. Right? And we need to get serious about it. And I think the key here is independent certification. And I think the UK is taking a lead on it. I'll give a bit of an update in a second on what Chaz from the VRA has provided us with regard to the certification. They've done a super job over the past 3 or 4 months with Jane over there driving it forward. So I think there's a really, really big opportunity here, but we need to embrace it. We can't keep on pushing it back. We need to look at certification. We need to embrace it. We need to look at what it means. And, it's more than just, am I going to sell more parts tomorrow? That's a tactical thing that we can do, but we need to think more strategically as businesses independently, but also as an industry. And that's where the ARAs and the different associations have a role to play. A couple of questions come through here. Tom from I Need Spares. Hi, Tom. Thanks for being on the call. Hi, everyone. Would the new eBay platform give price guidance so that there is a level playing field? Laura, I'm not sure that that's something we can.
I don't think you can do that, Chris. In the UK, it's price fixing. You can't do that.
So, Tom, I think the answer there is no. But I may need to understand a little bit more about what price guidance means. But I think if I'm reading the question correctly, I think the answer is going to be no. Scott's got another question there. What is needed more? Yards to be certified or interchange written for UK vehicles? So for the purpose of, for Adam and Laura's sake here, interchange basically is the part numbering system that we use in the automotive recycling industry that enables us to clearly identify the correct part for that vehicle or for the application. And often that is cross-platform and cross-make. So it could be the, I don't know, the Vauxhall and the something else runs the same engine or gearbox or hood or bonnet, right? Scott, my view, they're two different things, obviously. Obviously, interchange for the UK vehicles has been written. Obviously, and from an interchange perspective, I think Dave Morgan's on this call. He's written a lot of the interchange for the UK at a Hollander end or actual systems previous to Hollander. So certainly interchange has been written for the UK. It is an extensive database, but it's always developing, as you know. Even in the US, it still develops and it's imperfect. So interchange needs to continue developing, and certainly I think part numbers need to be somehow interfaced with the recycler interchange database, because a lot of the online systems do need part numbers. They're communicating part numbers. So we need that mapping to happen. And certainly, so that's the first thing. But on another front, certification is critical. I can't keep on saying it. I think I've said it enough. I had a discussion with someone that will remain nameless late last week on the phone, and I made it clear that there's not much more I can say about certification other than the fact that it's critical. And I think we need to realize that that's the case. We see it every day, guys. It's in front of us every day. We see certified Toyota used cars, certified Ford used cars, certified delivery vans for cold meats, certified this, certified that, everything's certified. We need to think about certification and what that means to the industry and how we can professionalize so that we can embrace, the opportunities that are being put forward by the likes of AVIVA here and other insurers, but also eBay and what they're looking to achieve.
And am I right in saying that even within the aftermarket supply, within the collision repairs, the products they sell are certified aftermarket?
So I think one of the things there, Laura, and I think I've mentioned it before in discussions and in presentations that I've made, and that is that if we look at where recycled parts are today, and I'll use the US example. If we look at recycled parts today, they're between 10 and 12%. Let's call it 11% of an estimate is in recycled parts today. That's down from about 14% probably 4, 5, or 6 years ago. Okay, we look at OE parts, and they're down a number of percentage points, right? From whatever it was, 67, 68%, down to, the low 60s or 60%. What has changed is that the aftermarket part has grown in penetration from 13-ish%, 7 or 8 years ago, now to well above 20, closer to 22% of parts used in a US collision repair estimate are now aftermarket. And the certification piece has driven that significantly. So I think that's something we should take note of as an industry, and again, look at that and say, well, how can we participate in that game and become a lot more of a viable option, if you like. Got a question here from Jason Cross. Brexit was a factor to be worried about parts supply. COVID-19 is now a physical blocker on the supply of parts into the UK. When this has passed, and it will pass, what will then be the driver to ensure those that are looking to continue how easy will it be to use the eBay page for multiple parts, lines? Hi all. Hi, Jason. So basically, I think what Jason's saying there, yes, there are things that are affecting supply lines at the minute. COVID-19, Brexit, all that type of stuff, we'll get over that in time, hopefully healthily, and we'll be in a position where things may come back to normal. And if that's the case, how viable is this to continue on? And one of the things I think he's alluding to there is the fact that, it's critical that a collision repairer is able to, on the one page on their eBay request, for example, to be able to pick multiple parts rather than do one at a time. Laura, I think possibly for you.
Yes, yeah, so that's what we call basket shopping versus individual item shopping. We have a way of interfacing the estimate information that the collision repairers will use. So we'll effectively read their estimates, map to algorithmically match using best match to part numbers, which will then offer up a list of items that can be replaced by reclaimed products that are available. So then the buyer, who is the collision repairer, is able to deselect or select all of those items if they're happy. So one of the big things obviously about business buying versus individual consumer shopping is I need to buy multiple items all of the time. I don't want to be individually picking each part. So we recommend the parts and we offer a shopping list for all of the parts based on those estimates.
Okay, you just mentioned something and I wanted to get some clarification. I'm sure that Auditex is probably the primary provider for the estimate writing platforms in the UK. Are you integrating with Auditex product? Is that what you're saying?
So we're looking, Chad, we're looking at our opportunities at the moment. So that may well be one that we move down. There's also 𝐒𝐄𝐈𝐒 in the UK, who haven't got as big a market share as Auditex, but there's 𝐒𝐈𝐒 as well. Also, but bear in mind, I just want to add that that's very specific to the collision repair industry. Garages don't work like that. So garages do search for parts in a different way. So there'll be multi-functionality on the platform.
Excellent.
Adam, did you want to touch on that? You had an opinion, looked like.
What was that? Sorry, Chad.
Adam, did you want to touch on that aspect of integrating with a estimate writing platform?
So you don't need to name any names. The basic principle is that an estimatic system captures a basket of parts and it uses a device called Trader to actually send that information to a designated source. What Laura described was the capture mechanism that can actually utilize that information and infinitely interact with it to find the right parts. So that's the way parts are supplied in the UK commonly.
Okay.
Yeah. We've got more questions coming through, so that's great. Keep them coming, guys. Is eBay and the insurance companies looking for certified processors or certified parts? Can I?
So, yeah, I can start that ball off by saying that there was no point writing a standard if you're not going to have a certification process. That's the whole point of having the standard. The standard then requires the part to have certain requirements. It's a double-edged sword, that question. The standard drives the behaviour of the parts, selection, criteria, matching, etc., etc.
Yeah. So I think, Scott, on that one there, so initially it will be a standard that governs, if you like, the recycling facility. Okay, so the facility will meet a certain level of criteria, and part of that criteria will be a grading system. The actual part that you take off that specific vehicle today it's not necessarily the part that is being certified. It is the process by which that facility goes through to ensure there is consistent level of quality, service, etc. Okay, so I think that's an important point, but it's a really good question. My view is that over the next few years, and probably sooner than later, to be honest, we will look at, as an automotive recycling industry, developing standards specific to part types. Right? So let me give you an example. Door mirrors these days have a whole heap of sensors in them that could be regarded as safety components because they're lane changing and collision avoidance and all these different things that are sitting in door mirrors. As a result of that, an insurer may look at that and say, well, if we use a recycled door mirror, how do I know it's going to do what it's supposed to do? So maybe there are certain things we need to do there as an industry. I don't have the answer as to exactly what those things are, but what tests can we take the door mirrors through, and how can we give comfort to the insurer who's going to write these products on or authorize these products to be used on the repair? How can they be comfortable that the product is fit for purpose? Okay, so I think...
Chris, I can come in on the door mirror. Well, part of the door mirror is a recalibration process that actually certifies that the part is actually operating correct. Therefore, by using the door mirror as an example is a good one to actually illustrate that the process that the repairers go through would actually come up with a green tick in the box. That mirror matches the requirements and has been calibrated effectively. So some of the stigmas around about these parts, I totally agree with your view that we need to get to a point where we define cosmetic, functionality and safety critical components into different groups to allow us to actually effectively build a set of guidelines up as to what happens to these components.
Yeah, I think, and you know, Adam, just on that point, these calibration tools, would they be available to our industry as well, or to the automotive recycling industry to use at the point of...
Yeah, they would be, but I'm not sure that it would be useful to your process. I think they're designed to actually operate when the vehicle's been repaired, and it's a final check, if you like, but it's electronic, and it reads ECU and CAN bus systems within the vehicle to measure compliance.
Sure.
It's more aligned to the repair process. But what it would allow us to do is, if a product that was supplied didn't match that requirement, it could be returned.
Yeah. Okay. So not every part from a certified facility will be insurance quality. That's correct. Not every part will be. And I suppose there's horses for courses there, Scott. I think we're not saying that a certified recycler cannot sell a part to non-insurance repairs or non-insurance customers, you know, because a part, as long as it's safe, right? As long as it's not a recalled part, for example, or it's not a product that you know could cause an accident. It might be a fender, for example, or a wing in the UK world, or a guard in Australia. It could be one of those items that has some, you know, a couple of dints in it, for example. Now, the insurance company may not use that, but certainly may be fit for the use by someone privately at home. So certainly we don't want to restrict the recyclers from selling their product, but we do want to make sure that we give comfort to the likes of eBay and the insurance companies to actually support the program. Let's keep on working through some of these questions because there's some really good questions coming through. Parts visible on eBay in B2B for the avoidance of doubt. No accurate part number for each part on the platforms equals part not visible to buyers. So Laura, does the platform require an exact match with a part number, or is there some other method that we're looking at using there?
So currently we rely on exact matches for manufacturer part numbers. We have got some what we call fuzzy logic, where it's unusual. So many people use different prefixes of part numbers. Some people put dashes, some people don't, some people put spaces, some people don't. So it is currently based on manufacturer part number matching, but we do have a team behind the scenes who review every sort or every list of products offered before they actually go out to the collision repairer as an option. So it's algo and it's manual.
Excellent, thank you.
Chris, I'll just come in at that point. One of the reasons for asking for the vehicle details is that you can commonly match part numbers back to VIN range. So it's useful to capture certain criteria to allow you to match where there is no stipulated part number on the part.
Yep. Gotcha. Thank you.
I have a question for Laura. Laura, is there a separate field in the eBay UK platform for the manufacturer's part number?
Yes, so we have manufacturer part number, and then we have reference OE part numbers. So quite often what I'm finding is with certain businesses, if you have a door or if you have a front bumper, they'll use all of the manufacturer part numbers within the assembly component and place those within reference OE part number, and then they'll use the part number for the bumper shell, for example, as the main manufacturer part number.
Okay.
Which is good.
Simon Baston Mitchell, how does a recycler get their already eBay listed parts, which could be tens of thousands, that qualify under the certification into the eBay repairer program? Do they have to be removed and re-uploaded, or can it be done in bulk?
No, so once we've got the go-ahead from the certification body that the recycler has been approved, we effectively flick some switches in the background. We've removed certain categories, so the recyclers that are certified will have the categories that aren't safety critical items. The inventory will be automatically pulled into the B2B portal.
Excellent. So really, it's not necessarily there, Simon, the certified parts that will be going in, but if that facility, if that organization, that eBay seller is a certified recycler, then certain of those parts, because obviously in the case of, for example, AVIVA, they may have components that they do not want to buy, suspension components or other safety components that they don't want available to their repairers. They may not be available on, or visible to AVIVA repairs. Okay, so there'll be some smarts in the background that will enable or disable some part types, but the rest of them should be able to come in if they meet the grading standard and whatever other standards are required.
Just to add on, Chris, I think as a nice thing for the recyclers to know is that once they pass the certification scheme, they also get a identification badging on ebay.co.uk. So they will be what we call a certified seller. So they'll get additional recognition, and they'll also get the opportunity to be able to filter by certified sellers. So it's a really nice plus point for the B2C as well.
Beautiful. Excellent. Does the panel believe, so this is William first, does the panel believe the certification scheme in the UK will be accepted by other insurers and sales platforms, or will we see a number of schemes being developed?
Supposition really, but yeah, I would imagine that certification brings confirmation that it meets a certain standard. Therefore, based on previous schemes like PAS 125, which turned into British Standard, initially not all insurers joined that scheme, but now they all certify to BS 10125. So I would say that it's a vote of confidence that insurers actually require to satisfy their business rules.
I think from William, from the discussions that I've been having along with Laura in the market, there is a significant amount of interest from a number of different insurers on where things are going, and certainly they see the certification program as a critical component of it, and the certification program is being driven by the VRA. So we're purposefully sat with Chaz and the VRA team and basically said it should be something driven by the association and owned by the association, as opposed to by an insurer, for example. So it is independent in that context, and the outsourcing of the auditing will be another function that will be independent. So I think it's critical. Okay, we need to keep moving on. I need to give Chaz's update as well. Just quickly, will the eBay estimate interface require salesman interaction, or will it be 100% computer interactive? Laura?
Not sure what they mean by salesman, but
well, someone there basically saying, I've got this part, or I've got that part, or I've got that part, I think is what they're saying.
Okay, so that's what we're trying to remove, right? So we've had 50 businesses express the certification that they want to be certified, right? These 50 businesses are within our top turnover and within our top listing count. So within those businesses, we want to algo match perfectly. But what we've also got is a support team based in Dublin that's going to educate, support, offer guidance, offer tools, technology to get these guys doing the right thing so that the algo can do it without human salesman intervention. But initially, my view is for the first at least 6 months, we'll have the team doing an intervention just to make sure that the parts are the right parts. But again, it's down to the buyer to make the decision that they want to buy those parts as well. We've got to keep that clear.
Sure, sure.
One of the main objectives for somebody sourcing parts is that they supply the correct information to allow people to source the right and relevant parts. It's critical. So a set of guidelines will follow the scheme to explain to purchaser and to seller exactly how you get the right results.
Sure. Got a question coming through on Facebook. Is there information available, Brendan Rafferty from TET for Parts, is there information available to say what manufacturer parts will be in greater shortage as a result of COVID-19? We would use the information to help us buy the correct salvage cars will be high in demand over the next 6 to 9 months. It'll also help benefit growth of the green parts. So that'd be interesting. I mean, potentially insurance companies have a lot of information there about where the delays are on parts shortages. Adam, would that be something somehow we'd be able to work closely on moving forward?
So I don't see a collaborative approach to that. I think each book of business is individual, and I believe that how we overcome challenges within part supply is individual to the individual insurers involved. So I don't think they would share information like that. What will become apparent if somebody's watching eBay is what parts are being bought. And then you can work out what vehicles are being salvaged, and that will tell you the story yourself.
Sure. Okay, I might jump into, there are still some more questions coming through. I'm going to jump in without ignoring the questions. I really do want to give Chaz's update, high level. So from a VRA perspective, Chaz wasn't able to be on this call tonight, so he's asked me and sent me some information. So from a VRA perspective, Vehicle Recyclers Association perspective, Chaz and the team have been working really hard on developing a certification protocol. That's now at a point of completion. They have tendered out to 7 different organisations, independent certification organisations or auditing organisations recognised, in the UK with the appropriate credentials. They've had 6 tenders come back. And there's a panel which includes myself and a few others that are reviewing each of those submissions, and will be putting forward recommendations or a score against each of those tenders between now and the end of this week, with a view of coming up with a result where we'll hopefully see a clear winner of that tender. So what that means is that we'll have a certification document that is very, very good. To be honest with you, it's the best document I've seen in some time. The VRA will drive that through an independent. They've set up an independent VRA certification, I think it's called, company that will be running the certification program. The winning, or the organisation that will be running the independent audits will then be notified of that, and obviously they'll be contacting recyclers that have put their hand up and wish to be audited. I'm hoping that will happen as soon as the lockdown is done and dusted with, but obviously that's put a bit of a spanner in the works. But we're getting close. We're getting close to that, and I think, as I said, Chaz and the VRA team have done a really, really good job. Couple of challenges that he's identified in that process. One is around grading. His view is that automotive recyclers will be challenged in the area of grading. I'm just going to look up his email very quickly to see the other two items that he had identified. Bear with me, I'm sorry. So grading of parts, and again, I think Scott asked a question earlier, but we do need a grading process, okay? Whether that's the ARA grading process or some kind of hybrid of that we need a grading process, and that's part of the document. But it will be an area that recyclers will also need some training in. It's not just about saying, yes, it's a good part or it looks good. No, we need to know what it means if a part's been repaired before, to be able to look on the inside of a wing, for example, and see that there aren't shrink marks there, because that's an indication of a previous repair. Look on the inside of the door and identify whether it's had another skin put on it or not. To be able to identify previous painting, and if the paint's gone on too thick, maybe we need to use the micrometer or whatever they use there. Whatever the case is, we will need some training around that. But I don't see that as a bad thing. Generating sufficient part stock, both in terms of identifying the parts in highest demand, or the right parts, and sufficient volumes. That's a bit of an unknown. My view is that there's significant volume in the UK market to supply the insurance industry. Again, it's not scientific a view, it's more anecdotal, but certainly from what I've seen in the UK market, I've said this before, I'll say it again, UK recyclers have some of the best stock available anywhere in the world, and at volume. So it's just a matter of coding that, inventorying that, making it available in an efficient way to the repair industry. The last thing he said that will be a challenge for the industry is there is currently no automated recalls checking process functioning in the UK, which makes checking for recalls very labour intensive to the point of impracticality. It's a challenge because recalls is obviously an area that the protocol deals with, and from an insurer perspective, one of the things that insurers are looking for is comfort that the part that they're buying is fit for purpose. I know I haven't gone through Chaz's document word for word, but they're the high level sort of current status of where things are at. He has had over 50 automotive recyclers in the UK put their hand up and said they want to go through the audit process, which is extraordinary, to be honest with you. So that's really positive. Yeah, I don't think there's much else I can say about the certification at this stage. We did have a question before from someone at Silver Lake asking what they needed to do. So basically, whoever is interested in the certification program, I would recommend that you make contact with Chaz Ambrose over at the Vehicle Recyclers Association and show your interest. Alternatively, if you want to send an email through to me, I'm happy to communicate that accordingly. But you guys all know Chaz, you can contact him directly. Any comments from the panelists on any of that at this stage?
All makes sense to me, especially the recall information. I think that's a critical part to this, that we want to buy parts that are not going to cause discomfort further down the repair process.
Okay, we've gone a little bit over, conscious of that. Any further comments from any of the panelists? Any further questions from any of the attendees?
No, I think Chris would just thank you. It's a really good opportunity to give an update. And I think there's a lot of people on the chat that I haven't heard of that are quite vocal. So I think if they've got any other questions, or if they've got any ideas, or any case studies that have happened in other countries, I'd be super keen to know.
Yep, excellent.
I would just mirror that, Chris. If somebody thinks that they've got a question that I can answer, then feel free to contact me.
Absolutely. One of the things I'd like to do is ask you, Adam, what do reclaim parts look like in 3 years' time for AVIVA?
So reclaim parts in 3 years actually is an integrated part of our supply chain. So we basically have options to buy components, and reclaim parts one of those components, and it would probably represent a significant proportion of the repairs that we undertake.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I think that's music to everyone's ears on this podcast. Whoever's on this podcast and call, please share the whether it's the YouTube link or the Facebook link to other recyclers. I think what you've heard here today from both eBay UK and AVIVA in the UK is extraordinary. I think it's something that we should embrace and share get the word out there, because I think there's change coming. As I said before, there's a great opportunity for the industry in tough times, in a very unfortunate situation at the minute that we find ourselves in. The recession is going to be long and hard for the general economy, and traditionally our organisations do well, or automotive recyclers do well in this market. We need to find our feet again, but I think you stay focused on the goal, stay focused on the plan, and invest in your businesses today for what's there for them in 2 and 6 months' time. I think the other thing that I want to make a point of here is that we as automotive recyclers should look at what we do and understand that we also have a responsibility to the community, and the offering that we have for the marketplace is somewhat different. And there's a whole heap of good things about it. It's, cost effective, it's high quality, it's green. There's all these different wonderful things about the products that we sell. So there is a responsibility that if we look at that as such, if we don't just look at ourselves as, salvage yards or junk yards or wrecking yards or recycling yards, we look at ourselves as organizations that are actually adding value to the social network, if you like, beyond just our businesses. I think we'll think differently as well about how we tackle things and how we tackle certification, what we do about that, because then all of a sudden certification becomes probably something that we embrace a little bit more as well. So I just wanted to get that message out there, because there's some really strong positive signs as we've seen tonight on this call. We should take those, we should share those with our fellow recyclers, and keep everyone positive. Chad, can I throw over to you for a bit of a closing comment before we end this?
Well, I just wanted to touch on Adam's comment about recalls, and we at All Auto Recalls are currently looking at how we can help the UK recyclers with a recall product. And so, we have a product here in Australia that is fully integrated with the Pinnacle system here, and it really wouldn't be much to roll it out into the UK. So we're going to be working on that in the coming weeks to try to have a solution there in the UK in the next month or two. So.
Good news.
Okay, everyone, thanks very much. Please stay tuned for our next podcast. We'll be back on next Tuesday. We really appreciate everyone being on this call, especially those in Australia and New Zealand, not many of them. We'll be broadcasting live tomorrow at 11. Everyone from the UK and the US, thanks very much. Appreciate all the questions. Hopefully you're getting value out of these sessions. I think the feedback has been great to date, so thanks very much for that. Laura and Adam, I really appreciate your time today. It's been great having you guys on and giving everyone an update on where things are at in the UK. So thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.